Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Take your pick. Okay, so the agenda doesn't look like this, but I can use this slide to welcome any new people. So, who's new here? First time. Awesome. Verna. Verna? Myrna, that's it.
But my last name is with a B.
Well, that explains my confusion, yes. I'm going to ask you to stand and tell us the surnames you're searching.
Oh my Lord. Okay, hi, my name's Verna Bella. I started genealogy around 2004, and then I took sick, and my late husband took sick, so it got put in the pile for all these years. Family names. On my dad's side, it's Dignam, D-I-G-N-E-M.
Dignam.
Dignam, and they're from Frontenac, Kingston, Wolf Island, the islands.
Kingston, Frontenac, and the islands area.
And McDonald.
McDonald.
Which is...
There's one or two of those around.
Yeah, it's the M-A-C. And then my mom's people are Saskatchewan, and that's Murray.
Murray from Saskatchewan.
And originally, they all came from the UK, Irish.
Yeah. Irish, English, British, yeah.
All exclusively.
I'm getting almost nothing.
And there's some peripheral names and lots of stories and so on, but that's pretty well it. So Dignam, Murray, McDonald, Gibson.
Gibson.
A lot of those,
Okay.
in Scotland, the females have all the names. So
That's great.
Kind of the high
That's
points.
great. Yeah, and we'll ask you, there's a list at the back with the gentleman over there, and we'll ask you to put down your surnames, and you never know, we might be able to connect you up with somebody.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thanks, Nancy.
thank you. And now we're going to go to our feature presentation. I'd like to introduce Bob Dawes, and of course your bio's on the other PowerPoint. So I can invent something, can't I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Well, Bob is retired from
Bell Canada.
Bell Canada, thank you. He's a former chair of Quinte Branch. He's the IT person and the database person and the go-to, and has webinars in his pocket for presentations and all that sort of stuff. And I always love to listen to Bob talk because I learn so much. So,
Thank you.
welcome, Bob.
Do you want to eject your key so that you can...
So, you want me to talk into the microphone, right?
Yes, please.
So, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. I apologize for bailing on your meeting in March, but we heard that the 401 was closed, and I gather that is substantiated because Stacy couldn't get here either. So, we found later that people were sitting on the 401 for several hours, so it was better that we stayed home. And I just luckily found on the weekend that in the OGS news that I was speaking again. So I'm going to talk about the Family History Rental Project. And I'm going to start with a pop quiz. Who uses a computer program or a program on a computer to collect their genealogy? Everybody. Lovely. How long has everybody been researching? Is there any new people? 5 years? 10 years? Longer? Have you learned anything? It's not like making quilts. When you make a quilt, as you progress and make more quilts, they get progressively better and better as you learn new skills. But with genealogy, you're always working with the same file. And we JEDCOM it from one program to another, bringing all the errors and mistakes and inaccuracies along with us. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The handout, which Nancy has already put up on your website, is easy to get. You just go to https://tinyurl.com/easy-do-over, and you can download the 3-page handout which gives you printed instructions on how to do this. Or you can go to your own website, because the link to it's on your own website as well. So I don't have to spend a lot of time on that. So what's the difference between a do-over versus a reno? Well, a do-over, starting with a do-over is bottom up. You start with yourself and you work backwards, redoing all of the work that you have done from the beginning, but using your new skills to find the documents that you may have missed the first time around. And generally, that's our primary family that we start with. That's us and our parents and our grandparents that we started with. And that's where all those inaccuracies have come in, or lack of sources, or place names that are not consistent, that kind of thing. So you have to really run 2 files. You need a new file for your do-over, and it means a lot of redundant work. And then if somebody comes along, like if a 5th cousin contacts you through a DNA you match, you're going to have to go back to your old file and work on it there, and then go back to your do-over file. So I thought, well, this isn't any fun. It's just a lot of work. I wanted to keep using my regular file, so that's why I came up with the reno idea. So you keep your existing file. You can work on new research. You can duck out and add a new family branch, or add information about a new family member. Excuse me. And you just correct and update as you go. So you're improving, you're cleaning up, and what this is going to help you do is keep track of where you are and how you're doing it. So why do you want to do this? Things have changed since you started. New records have become available. I don't know, I started in about 1993 with a Dawes program, and there wasn't much available that you didn't have to go to a library and get. There wasn't anything online. Most of what you could get at home was on CDs you bought. So you just bought CDs like crazy. So we got new records. We've got censuses that have been released since we started. We've got birth, marriages, and death records, transcripts of all kinds, cemeteries. We didn't have anything like Find a Grave, or Billion Graves, or Deceased Online, or any of these online cemetery records, and a lot of new specialty records. And as we wait, some of the Kirk session records are now starting to come online, which is really great. We've got a lot of new resources as well. Indexing, different types of indexing. Images that are connected to indexes. Online trees, which we didn't have in the beginning. We've got DNA, we've got webinars, and we've got conferences. How many of you have been to conferences where you've learned things in class sessions? Okay, great. So that's all new. We've got new tools to use. We've got websites. We've got search engines that are unique to just genealogy. We've got new genealogy programs. I've got a slide coming up a little later that shows you a variety of the programs that are available. And we've got APIs, application programming interfaces. Now these are the side doors that Ancestry and Familysearch and Find My Past have built into their systems to allow programs like your genealogy program to access them and see if they can find records that match the people you have in your tree. So when you're on Ancestry and you get your little shaky leaf, or you're on you're on Find My Past and you get the same thing in, say, Legacy, that's because there's an API at work that's making those connections in the background. And that's one of the big sort of almost artificial intelligence that we're using for genealogy. You've improved your research skills, most importantly. Of all the things we've done, as you've used these new tools and records and everything else, you've improved the way you do your work. And that's the most important thing. And the final one is you've developed a spidey sense. That's that tickle in the back of your neck when you're going through the microfilm and you see a name you know you've seen before. And you can go back to it. That's the kind of thing where you just know there's something there, there's a connection that you can make. So what are you going to gain from all of this? You're going to learn new skills, obviously. You're going to make breakthroughs, hopefully. You're going to identify fifth cousins for DNA, fifth cousins for your DNA matches. Most of us haven't brought our trees down to the current generations, so all these names we see on our match list from GEDmatch or from Family Tree DNA or Ancestry, we don't recognize any of the surnames. Well, that's because the names have changed so many times over the 5 or so generations back to a fifth cousin. But if you're doing this, you're gonna have all these people in your tree, and you're going to be able to make those connections. Oh, I should watch the slide on the left and not the slide on the right. I'm going to jump ahead. It restores the fun in genealogy. It keeps you focused. That's the most important part of this, is it keeps you focused on where you are, so that if you go out and start to do different kinds of research, you can come back to where you were and carry on with your rental project. So you're always coming back to the same point, and you're carrying on with that when you've got nothing else to do. It gets you ready to publish. If that's your goal, if you're gonna publish something, everybody says, well, I'm not ready yet, I haven't finished. There's so much I need to clean up. Well, this is your opportunity to clean it up so that you get ready to publish. So this is what happens over time. You start your tree down here, and you're entering your ancestors. And records and resources improve over the intervening years, and over this time, your skill level goes up all the time. You're always learning new things, and you're applying those new things to the new research that you're doing. But you don't always go back and fix the old stuff. So who remembers these? This is where we used to be, exactly. All those CDs that we used to collect, and the LDS index CDs. So that was the way we used to do it. Now I'm going to jump out for a minute and put in my disclaimer here, because I've had too many complaints that this takes people away from what else they were doing, like cutting grass or making dinner. So you're going to work at your own pace. That's the great thing about doing a rental. You can embellish as much as you want. You don't have to add. You decide what you're going to add to the program as you go. My guidelines are not gospel. I'm going to give you some pointers, and you're going to apply them to your own work. The most important part is that you enjoy the journey, that you're having fun doing this. So what are the benefits of a rental? We're obviously going to correct erroneous information. We're going to fix stuff. And as we fix stuff, as we find those records that allow us to add a full birth date, we're going to find new information. We're going to find other children in the family. We're going to find extra records and other things that we can add. We're going to fix relationships. I've fixed a number of relationships already that even taken people out that didn't belong. You're going to focus your research. And that focus is the most important thing. You're going to focus and stay focused on what you're doing. You're going to add missing source information. If you weren't putting sources in the early days, how many didn't put sources in? And now you look at your program and say, where did I get that from? Who gave that to me? Was it an email? Did I find it online? I don't know. So you're going to be able to fix that. You're going to standardize terms and labels, what you've been using in your program, especially locations. I've got Ancestry. My grandmother came from Prince Edward Island, and I have it in 4 different ways. I've got PEI with periods, I've got PEI without periods, Prince Edward Island spelled out, and PE for the postcode of Prince Edward Island. So this is your chance to fix this stuff. You're going to gather new documents. You're going to improve your DNA analysis. So what are the benefits? The overall benefits. Left slide, Bob. Left slide. The final thing is you're going to organize your digital storage. That's going to be on the tape, right, when I make those note to self. You're not going to edit those out. So you're going to organize your digital storage. Because you're going back and revisiting everything, you're going to capture new images. You're going to visit, Find My Past or Ancestry or whoever you have an account with or visit in the library. You're going to download new records. You're going to download records that maybe you got off microfilm and wrote down by hand. Now you can actually make a printout of that record and actually have it to work from. So you're going to have it now. How do you file it? And this is important that you start to correct how you store all of this material. And we'll look at that in a little more detail later. So the errors that we were talking about, what are we missing in our tree? Well, we're missing birth, marriage, and death locations. Like I have a lot of dates, but no locations. I have a lot of, not full dates, just years. Missing dates or full dates, events after the death of the father, or even after the death of the mother, like births, a year after the death. Events when the mother was too young or the father was too young. Unlinked individuals that were somehow got into your tree. Maybe you put them in there to park them and didn't realize they were still there, and you can fix this kind of thing. Poor location and citation syntax. You're going to decide how you're going to do it, and like I said, you're going to do this your way. You don't have to follow the Elizabeth Schoen Mills evidence explained to the T. I like to put in enough information that I could get back to the record again to find out where I got it. At least enough, it tells me it's the 1841 census of Sussex, so I know where to go to get it. And much more. So how are we going to, the easy way to do this is to check your file with Family Tree Analyzer. And if you need it, actually, has anybody used Family Tree Analyzer? Nobody has. Well, that's the website there where you can download it and install it from. It's easy. It's just ftanalyzer.com/install. If you want to, I see Nancy taking a picture of it. So if you're going to put that up on your website after, that's great. This is a free program. It was written by a fellow who used it to analyze his GEDCOM file, and it's an amazing program. So these are the kind of errors, and I don't know if that's focused enough for you, but these are all the kinds of errors that it looks for. Duplicates, birth after death or burial, that kind of thing, which is kind of hard. Birth after the father was age 90 plus, or the mother was age 90, or 60 plus for the mother. That's right, 60 plus. And these are the kind of errors that you see. There's lots of things, and this gives you a very quick look at your tree and where you should be, where you can start to correct stuff. The important thing is what you want to do is uncheck all of these and then just check them one at a time. I check them all so you'd see a bunch of errors, and that's that you can work at it more slowly than that. It also gives you a look at the censuses. Now this is a graph. Oops, sorry. Spastic movements. What the graph does is it takes the birth and death year of the individual, and it says, based on that, you should be able to find this person in all of these censuses. Or you should be able to find them in the 1939 registration in England. Like this person should be found all the way through because they were born before 1841 and they died after 1939. Apparently, supposedly, allegedly. But if you wanted a project, you should be able to look for these people in all of those censuses. And if you only have a couple, then you can go and look for the missing ones. And you can print this out nicely from Family Tree Analyzer. So, to prep for a reno, we're going to build a fan chart out to 6 generations. Just a straight fan chart out to your third great grandparents. You're going to build descendant charts down from each set of third great grandparents. Now, you don't have to do them all at the same time because you've got 16 sets. So you want to pick one set of third great grandparents, print out a descendant chart down to yourself or current times, and you'll, because it's a fan chart, you're always going to be at the bottom of this if you started with yourself. So you're going to bring these down. You're going to make an inventory of what's new, what you should be looking at that you didn't have before. You're going to identify what your new skills are. You're going to gather some tools, and all I used was a highlighter, some sticky notes, and a red pen to mark on documents that I'm recording. And I'll show you how I do that. So here we have, on my original documents, I don't like to mark them up. So I just put a sticky note on them. I indicate the source in red, so I know what source I've called it, so that I keep using the same syntax over and over again. And I put a mark on it with a felt pen, just a blue slash, to indicate that I've scanned it and saved it digitally on my computer. So every time I see a blue slash on the document, I know I've already scanned it. I don't have to worry about it, it's been done. On copies that I've either printed myself or I've printed in a library because they're not as valuable as an original, I just put the blue slash right on them. I just write it right on the document on the margin. So those are the only tools I used in doing this, other than a computer program. So when we look at our checklist, our What's New checklist, we've got census records. We've got new years that we didn't have before, and we've got new images. We've got birth, marriage, and death records. A lot of new data from Familysearch that we didn't have before. A lot of new records have been added. They're adding records all the time. And I forget to go back and check to see if areas that were not covered well before have been added. We've got specialty records. And the 1939 registration, has anybody got British ancestry here? Has anybody used the 1939 registration? Okay, the rest of you don't know what you're missing. It's absolutely outstanding. It was taken in 1939 at the beginning of the war to build the ration book system for the UK. So everybody signed up for it, except some mothers didn't add their 17 and 18-year-old sons. But then they didn't get their rations, so that kind of encouraged them to add them. But in most cases, they were added. It gives you the full birth date of the individual. It gives you their location, their occupation, and it gives you the family group in most cases, and it shows people that would, as of now, anybody born before 1919. So they have to be 100 years old to be on the registration. Did I didn't go for it. Let me go back. Here's where I was. I was halfway through here. So I'm going to come and show you a picture of it and give you an idea of what's on it. The most important thing is that the 1939 registration was used as the original record for the National Health Service, which started in 1952. And women who got married have their surnames, their married surnames added on the 1939 registration. And in some cases, their marriage dates are in the margin. So you get a lot of extra information that you weren't bargaining for. We've got resource databases like Scotland's People, which is unbelievable if you've got Scottish ancestry. We've got websites like Find a Grave and Genealogy Bank for newspapers, and we're getting more Canadian newspapers coming online. I just saw today or on the weekend that the Nipissing branch is going to be filming the North Bay Nugget. So all kinds of newspapers are starting to come online. There's not enough of Canadian records there yet, but I guess we have to start somewhere. And finally, we've got other things that are new, like webinars. Does anybody watch Webinar Wednesday on Legacy webinars? Yeah, it's another thing you should all be looking at. It's free. You can sign up for it, and it's really valuable because you'll learn all kinds of things. And the webinars are free for a week after they air on Webinar Wednesday. And you can go on to Legacy Family Tree webinars and see what's coming. If you belong to Legacy, there's just been a whole group of Scottish training classes added. I think there's 12 episodes from Dr. Bruce Drury. And they won't be aired on, a couple of them are aired online, but not all of them. And I think there's one this coming Friday on Scotland's places. We've got podcasts. There's all kinds of podcasts on genealogy, and we've got tons of books. So looking at the records that are new, and I'm just going to skip over or sort of give you a cursory overview. This is the 1839 registration for Lambeth in London, and you can see what it looks like. It's color, it's got tape on it, it's the original document scanned, These are the redacted entries, and anybody that's been watching CNN and the Mueller report knows what the word redacted means now. When something's blacked out, it's redacted. Well, these are the people that are supposedly still living. So they were born after 1919. But that isn't always the case, because I have a cousin who lives in Truro, and she's on it, and she's still very much alive in her 80s. So I don't know how she got on it, and it's not redacted. If you find somebody that's redacted and you know they're dead, you can contact Find My Past, and you can have them unredacted if you have the registration information for their death. So if you've got the volume number and the page number off of FreeBMD or the GRO website, you can actually have the people unredacted. But they unredact tens of thousands of people every year as the years change. So when 2020 comes, they will be unredacting all the people that were born in 1920. We've got the Familysearch films that are online now, that you can view in the comfort of your own home, just like you had a microfilm reader. Now, these aren't always the case. You can't get all of them. It depends on the relationship between the church and the repository. But in the most case, in England, there's quite a few of the county record offices that have shared their images with Familysearch. So you can find the record on Familysearch, you can link to it, you can find the microfilm, and you use this just like a microfilm. It has the headers just like you find on a microfilm, because it is a microfilm. It's just been digitized. And you scroll through it the same way you would with a microfilm, page by page or frame by frame. And this is really valuable. Records are improving. And the easiest way to find which records have been added is on Ancestry as an example. If you look in the activity column under the card catalog, you can see what records are new or what records have been updated. And it's always wise to go and look at that every now and again to see, if there's something new that you haven't seen before, especially a transcript for a particular county. There may be, because a lot of more records are being shared and being transcribed. In Familysearch, you've got the same thing. You can see the last updated column on the catalog, and it tells you what dates things have been added. So that's another place to check fairly easily. So looking at the records inventory, I'm not going to go through each of these. This is a thing that you can look at yourself based on your own research. Just make a list. When I started out, the first Canadian census I started using was 1881, but there's a lot more that have been released. Of course, there's some before that. The same with the UK censuses. And coming back to the 1939 registration, which is right here, we didn't have anything like it. The 1921 census for the UK will be available in 2022. It's already being scanned right now and indexed by Find My Past. But it won't be available for 2.5 more years. The 1931 census was burned in the Blitz, and the 1941 census never got taken because of the war. So all we've got until 1951, and that'll be released in 2052 or 3, is going to be this registration. So it's really helpful if you can jump ahead with this and use it. And it's on Ancestry now as well as Find My Past. We've got Canadian BMDs that we didn't have, or we just had the IGI for, and now we've got images on Familysearch, especially for BC and Newfoundland and some of the other, and Ontario. So we've got a lot of records that have become available. And this one here, Find My Past just added the transcripts of the deaths, the UK deaths from 2008 to 2016. They only had up to 2007 originally, which were the transcripts from the General Registry Office in Kew, and now they've got these transcripts that take them right up to 2016. That's really current, and they give you the full death date of the individual, which you can't get from the indexes. Resources. We've got all kinds of things. We've got public trees online. We've got DNA that we didn't have before, and this is just anybody that's used GEDmatch. This is just a matrix of some of my family that shows the relationships between them. So the resources are improving, and these are a lot of the resources that you can get access to. Some of these may gear you towards, or because I'm interested in English research, I've got a lot like FreeBMD and the General Register Office and that kind of thing. But the BC Archives is a wonderful place. They have really great records. WikiTree, Cindy's List always. Cindy, and I'm going to come back to Cindy's List because it's a great place to find what's new on, relative to genealogy. Resources inventory. What are the new resources that we're looking at? So, we've got Find My Past, we didn't have several years ago. Familysearch has digital images online. FreeBMD, which is up to about the 1980s now. When I started using FreeBMD, they were barely at 1900. They started it with 1837 and moved forward year by year by year and county by county by county. It's all volunteers that are doing the indexing for FreeBMD, but now they're up to the 1980s, and that's wonderful because that really gives us some depth that we can do research in. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these either, but there's DNA, there's ancestry with record matches, and this is what I'm talking about, the APIs, giving you your shaky leaves and that kind of thing. Legacy now gives you record matches. MyHeritage gives you record matches. Just about everybody's doing it. And you've got new ones down here like RootsFinder, which gives you record matches or hints from everybody, including American Ancestors, which is the New England group, or Newspaper Archives, Billion Graves. Now it's a free and paid site, so you can get some free information, but if you want the most, you're going to have to take out a subscription. But it's worth looking at. The standards that we're going to use. What's our inventory of standards? As I said before, my place names are a mess and need to be cleaned up. So as I go through my Renewal project, as I come across place names that are not spelled out properly, I correct them. You can also use find and replace in your genealogy program when you find a problem like that, and you can apply a global fix across your entire file. Sources, combining labels or standardizing your format. I've got Ancestry in probably 3 different ways as a source. I've got Ancestry.com, I've got Ancestry Public Trees, I've got Ancestry.co.uk. So I'm standardizing that down to just Ancestry and one source for Ancestry. And then in the criteria or the citation remarks, I spell out whether it's a public tree or a census or whatever that I'm using from Ancestry. Your facts. If you haven't been using the facts like residence and occupation and that kind of thing, this is your chance to add those facts to your file. Coding, all the new programs have ways of hashtagging and color coding and doing things, capitalizing your bloodlines so that you immediately know that you're dealing with a blood ancestor, like a direct great-grandparent. That's one way of doing it, and this is the time to fix that if you didn't do it or if you were sporadic with it. And shorthanding. I use shorthands in my place names to identify what kind of record I've got, so I don't have to open up the source file to see what it is. So I use a registered trademark symbol in front of the place name for a birth, and that tells me that I have an actual statutory birth certificate for that person. I don't have to open up any other fields. Right away I can see that, and that prints out in all of my reports, that registered trademark symbol. If I have the census, I put the copyright symbol just because it's a C for census. I use a bunch of different, I use an upside down question mark, you get all of these, by the way, from your symbol, what do you call it, the symbol chart that comes with Windows. You just find it through your Windows accessories. And once you know the key code, it's just an alt and four characters, and that gives you the symbol that you can put in the field. Now it's up to you. This is a personal. I started using it because my program didn't give me that depth, and I continue to use it. But this is the kind of thing you can add, and that's why I say do it your way. So your new skills. Well, obviously these depend on you. They depend on how long you've been researching, and all of you have been researching for more than 10 years. It depends on what country or place you're researching. It depends on what subscriptions you have access to, or what libraries and archives you can get to. And it depends on what you belong to. What societies do you belong to? I belong to the Sussex Family History Group in Sussex, and I've just been using their online burial and baptism database, which is unbelievable. I haven't used it before. I've been a member for many years. It's a membership only thing, and it's just really good. So we look at some of the records and how they can help us, because how the newer records can help us. So this record is a 1911 census, and it has some interesting features that can help us find other information. For instance, it gives you the number of years married for the parents. So to save you searching and ranging around trying to find when a couple got married, all you've got to do is subtract 28 from 1911 and start looking in that year for them. So it's, that's the kind of thing. That's a new skill. Children, born, living, and dead. So we know there's 5 children still living in 1911, but they're not with the family. If we go back to the, does this work? There we go. There's 2 children still living with the family. So 3 are gone, or 3 have moved out of the 5, and 1 is dead. So we can look for that death as well, if you like filling in those bits and pieces. I do. You also see on this census the writing of your actual ancestor, because they filled it in themselves. These are the actual census documents, not the enumerator sheets. Using FreeBMD and the GRO index. Now this is where you use 2 websites to triangulate a solution to your problem. FreeBMD is really great at finding all the people born in a location in a given time frame, but it doesn't tell you who the mothers were. The GRO website, where you order certificates from, but you don't have to order any certificates. You need a free account to access it, but you can just use it to look at things. The GRO website gives you the mother's maiden name, but only lets you search a year at a time, which is a real pain, because you got to search for males and females. So you got to keep switching back and forth. You can look for males, you look for females, then you move on a year. You look for males, look for females. So you use FreeBMD to find the likely candidates, and then you use the GRO website to zero in on the right year, and you find the actual person, and you can look for just the ones with the right mother's maiden name. So this is what I was trying to find. This person here, Mary Ann Wooler, who was born in Lewis, and here she is here, Mary Ann Wooler. Her mother's maiden name was Gearing, and it's more than Lewis. It's Lewis, Chaley, West Furl, and New Haven, which is right on the coast and not anywhere near Lewis. Lewis is in the middle of Sussex. West Haven is right on the cliffs of DoOver almost. So that's how you use 2 websites to zero in and solve a problem. And that's what I mean by a skill. That's a skill that you've learned as you've done your research. Using the 1939 registration, and you can see what I mean by redacted. But the good news is here, well, let's start with this case here. Here we have a Miller who became a Sutherland. She married a Sutherland. So now I can look on FreeBMD for that marriage between a Miller and a Sutherland. And if I'm lucky, over here, I'll find the date that she got married. So as I said, these were used for the National Health Service. And so they've annotated all of these names on this original document. So there's all kinds of gold in here. It shows the full birth date of the individual. So this is 66. It was taken in 1939, so that's obviously 1866 that this person was born. And they're still alive in 1939. And then when you see 17, you have to make the assumption it's 1917, not 1817, or they're really, really healthy. Redacted entries show possible children. So you may not know the child's name, but if you know they're there, you can go looking for them. You know they were alive in 1939, so they were born sometime before. So again, that spidey sense thing is working, and you're able to pull that together. The count shows the total living at an address. Now this isn't always accurate. It could be a mother-in-law or a brother living with them as well. And if they were born after 1919, obviously they're going to be redacted. But most often it's the children who are redacted. And I just find it when I know the number in the family, like this group here, is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 are redacted, and 6 is open. So I know there's 6 people in the family, the 2, mother and father, and then I can look for 4 other family members on FreeBMD for the births. So you see the total count. You can see the 1, 2, 3, and then the redactions here. Looking at Canada, using the 1921 census as an example. You get the birthplaces of the mother and father. Oh, well, you get birthplaces of everybody, but if they're immigrants, it tells you whether they came from Scotland or Ireland or England, so you know where to go looking on the censuses before 1921, if you can't find them on the 1911 Canadian census. I'm just going to take a break. Before I go hoarse. It also gives you the year that they immigrated. So you know that they were still, or should be still, on the 1901 census in the UK, if they only immigrated in 1907 and 1908, and then had their children in Quebec. Using Scotland's People to search without paying any money. So Scotland's People has privacy rules, and you have to, you can use Scotland's People, but you have to pay for everything you get from them, except for searches. Searches are free. So I had I had a child of one of my relatives, Jane Margaret Marshall, and I knew she got married, but I didn't know who she married or when she married. But I knew it was in Renfrew. So I just did a search on Scotland's People, and I got the fact that she married Ian Wilson Wallace in 1986, and it's these locations, Eastwood and Mearns, are in Renfrewshire. So that's enough for me to fill in this family, because it's kind of an ancillary family, so I don't need to go and pay for the certificate. And it's funny because, as you see here, the ones that are out of the privacy period, you can pay 6 credits and get the actual certificate, which gives you all the information about both sets of parents, their occupations, their addresses. It's really genealogy gold. But good old Scotland, even though this is private, if you pay them some money, they'll send you the certificate by mail. You'll get an original, even though it's within the privacy period. Now, that would cost you a fortune, because I think they're £10, right, Barb? So they're £10 each, so you're talking $15, $16 a piece to buy them. So unless they're your blood ancestors, you really don't want to do that. And you can't get anything else unless you go to the Scotland's People Centre, where you can see these records at the Scotland's People Centre, but you can't print them. You can write down all the information off the record. Okay, looking at Familysearch. This is what I was talking about. You see the film. You see all of the headers on the film and the tailors at the end of a series of images. You can see the actual images. This is a good one. This is a better one. Now you'll know that these are available if you see the little camera here. Now I know that's hard to see from where you're sitting, because I can hardly see it there too. There's a little magnifying glass for searching, and then there's a little camera that says that the film is available to view on your computer. And all you have to do is click on it to view the film. If it has a key over it, it means that it's locked or restricted, and you have to view it at a family history center. But you can still see it if you go to a family history center. And that includes all the Scottish records, which are closed due to copyright restrictions. But you can see them at a family history center, and you have a good one here in Oshawa. So this is a typical record, and there it is in full. And this is the original vicar's handwriting. So we've got it's a baptism, actually a birth as well, because I was lucky here. February 3rd, 1814. Elizabeth, born on the 25th of November, daughter of George and Anne Pullen in Lansing, and he's a butcher. So there's the full information. And it's really important that you go back and look at this stuff, because I had a third great grandmother that I had assumed was my third great grandmother, and when I saw the original record, I'd gotten it off the IGI originally. When I saw the original record, she was a widow. She was young, she was only 23, but she was a widow. So she had been married before, her husband had died, so I had her married name, not her maiden name. So from looking at the original, I was able to go back and find the earlier marriage and got her actual maiden name. So that's why it's always important that you go back. So that's a skill you learn as you're doing this. I used to love finding it on the IGI and just fill in that form and move on to the next one, just like stamp collecting. Name gathering. Canadian archives. We've got British Columbia. The BC archives are wonderful. They've got, this is a death record, and it's got all kinds of information on it. And this is one of my ancestors who died in BC. He was from Scotland. He came to live with his daughter and son-in-law, and I got all the family information off of this document from BC. And these can be linked to through Familysearch, or you can go right to the BC archives. They have a good search engine right on the BC archives website. This is a New Brunswick marriage, and again, you get the full record with a lot of family information about both sides of the family. So, really good information in Canadian records as well. Before you start, now we've gone through all of the pieces, and now I'm going to show you actually how it works. But how many are using an old genealogy program? Anybody using a Dawes program? So you're all upgraded. Anybody using the latest Family Tree Maker, 2017? Okay. Legacy 9. Okay. Roots Magic. Good. We've got a really good smattering. You must have a good SIG.
No.
You don't have a good SIG. You need a new special interest group. I just did a quick search on what was available, and I was amazed at the number of programs that are available. Some of these I thought had gone out of business, like Brothers Keeper, but they're still there, and they're still upgrading it. So it's still around. They're still charging for it as well. Some of these are free, some of them are not. There's not as many Mac ones, but there's a few Mac ones, and there's some Linux ones, and there's good old Gramps, which runs on just about anything. But this would be a good time if you're planning on starting this and you were thinking about upgrading. This might be a good time to say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to GEDCOM my file in, and then I'm going to start my Renewal project using all the new features of my new program. So as I said earlier, before you start, where are your digital images stored? Have you got them all in one place, or are they all over the place? Are they in subfolders, designated by type, by time frame, by location, by surname, or are they kind of messy like this? It says, Gardner old and Lamb old and Dawes new and stuff like that. This is a good time to fix that, and also how you define the file names for all of your images. Do you have a syntax that makes sense so that when you sort them, they all sort by year or by surname or by place, whatever way you decide you want to work. This is your chance to make up some rules for yourself and then start following your own rules. And as you go, you'll gradually fix everything as you come across it. Have everything you've got been scanned? Have you scanned all your photographs? Have you scanned all your certificates that you ordered online? And they came in the mail and you put them in a binder? Did you ever scan them so you've got a digital copy of it? If you scan everything, it's going to make it easy to back them up. And that's to me the most important part. We back up 3 ways. We have little external hard drives on our computers that back us up every hour. We have an online service that backs us up every night. And twice a month, we copy everything to a 3rd external hard drive. Belt and suspenders all the way. Do you have source references for your documents written on them? So here's your chance to fix that. So now we're going to look at the basic steps. You're going to use a fan chart, as I said before, and I'm going to show you one. You're going to print out one group of 3rd grades at a time. You're going to look for missing and incomplete information. You're going to research using your new tools to fill in the missing pieces. You're going to correct your genealogy. You're going to correct them in your genealogy program. You're going to mark them off on the chart. You just pencil, strike them through as you visit each individual. You're going to source your changes and your documents as you go. And you're going to move on to the next individual. So this is what a fan chart looks like. There's 16 pairs of great-great-great-grandparents, and your brick walls show up like a sore thumb. So this is the way, this is what it looks like, and we're going to take one group out of this, and we're going to start working it. So we take this group here, and what I'm saying is, don't take your maternal grandmother's side or your paternal grandfather's side, because that's probably where you have the most information. If I printed a descendant chart of this group, I'd probably have 25 pages. And that's not where I want to start. I want to start with something that's easy and that I can work through, and maybe where I have more blanks because they're lesser known people. So I start up here. So I just took out this little slice and I printed a 3 1/3 page descendant chart. So this is what it looks like in big. You know, I've just got a year. Can I get a full date? I've got an about date, which means I probably got it off the census, because that's how I mark dates from the census. If I subtract their age from the year of the census, I put in about as the year. Can I find their actual year that they were born? Or died, for that matter. I'm missing death dates in a lot of cases. Did any of these people marry? Are there gaps where children could have fitted in between because there's a 5 or 6 year gap and everybody else only has 2 years? Is there, you know, is somebody missing from the group? Why do I only have one branch out like this and not anything for these people? So those are the kinds of questions you're going to see when you look at your chart. And I've had people come back up to me, you know, after they've done this and said, I never realized how much of a mess I was in until I looked at it this way. This is just some of the, I printed this out again using the full dates, and this is just some of the missing information. Missing death dates in the dashed lines, you know, incomplete dates, about events, missing birth and marriage events. Lots of stuff to look for. Now, if you don't have a program that does nice color charts like that, you can use a standard chart out of Family Tree Maker, just a straight ancestral chart, and just print a register report for each pair. So this is a chart back from you to your 3rd grade grandparents. It just looks a little different. Excuse me. And you print a register report, which gives you all of the basic information about each individual. It gives you your full birth and death dates, marriage dates, and locations. So you can immediately see where you have the problems. And you can see some of my little registered trademark symbols popping out there. So if we take a closer look at it, here's an about date. You know, can I get a full date for that? Can I get a full date for this? Here's a gap for an extra child. There's a 6 year, from 1816 to 1821. So there's a good possibility there's another child in there. I don't have deaths or marriages for these people. About dates again. Deaths and marriages for all these people. So I did one of these just for fun, just to give this presentation. I took one group and I printed it off and I just worked it for a day. All the black on this chart is what I started with. All the red is what I found. Okay? I almost doubled all my information and found them all dying in Owen Sound, Ontario. They're all born in England. They all immigrated to Canada and they died in Owen Sound, thanks to Find a Grave for that. So this is you know, finding a family that immigrated and landed here and had children here, and you know, a couple more generations. So you can just see there's whole groups of people that have added to this that I didn't have before. So that's the value of doing it. And you'll have fun, because at the end of the day when you do this, you've accomplished a lot. You know, you've really done something. What I used FreeBMD for the British dates. I used Familysearch for Ontario marriages. I used Find My Past for death, the 1939 registration. I used a couple of censuses and some passenger lists when I discovered that they died in Ontario. I found the years that they immigrated and added those to my chart as well. I used Ancestry. I did go on and look for some public trees, which gave me some leads. And I always use public trees for leads, but I never add them to my chart until I've sourced them properly. But they're good for finding leads. And then I use Find a Grave for the Ontario burials. Now, you can also automate your checking another way. You can use a program like Legacy, because it has built-in error checking. So Legacy 9 is free. You can do everything I'm going to show you with the free version. I'm not saying you have to use Legacy 9 if you're using something else, but you can use Legacy 9 as a tool to find missing bits. You're going to look for discrepancies, errors, and hints. So this is how you do it. You just JetCom your file into Legacy 9, and it will obviously give you the same date issues that I showed you on my chart. But more importantly, it's going to show me discrepancies. Births where the mother was too young, that kind of thing. All you have to do is hover over this little exclamation mark, and it's going to tell you what's wrong with that particular individual. And I've got a couple here. And then looking for record matches. It's giving me hints in the orange balls on what are record matches for censuses and other records that I might find information on. So you could use Legacy just to do this and then go back and correct them in your own program. So you can have Legacy open at the same time. You just JetCommed your file over to it, and you're just using it as a tool to help you correct your work as you go. You don't have to do that, but that's just an extra. So you're going to rental your file. You're going to build your charts. You're going to select a family group and pick an easy one. Look for incomplete event information. Look for missing children and spouses and gaps. Check immigration for vanished families, or make a note of people that disappear forever, like they're on 2 censuses and then they are not on any subsequent ones. Rather than going and looking for them now and getting yourself bogged down on a quest to see where did they go. Did they go to North America? Did they go to Australia, South Africa? Just put them on a list and come back to them later. Don't let them stop your research. You're going to update your information as you find it. That's the fun part. You're going to standardize your places, facts, and sources as you're entering this information. You're going to correct all of these inaccuracies that you come across. You check off the person on your printed chart and you move on to the next one. And that's the focus part of this. You get a DNA link by email, and you go off trying to find out how the person connects to you, and you've moved away from the family you were working on. Well, all you've got to do is look at your printed page and go to your index and go back to the person you last worked on, because you've checked them off, and you can carry on right where you left off. So the big bonus, what you're going to get from this, you're going to find new ancestors. You're going to find new records, I guarantee it. You're going to discover new resources. You're going to learn how to use new tools, like the ones I showed you, working with 2 websites to kind of use them together. You're going to test new programs, hopefully. You're going to try some new programs. You might find that you like them better than what you're using. You're going to analyze things differently, because you're applying your skills on a repetitive basis. So you're learning and you're entrenching those skills, and you're able to improve them. You're going to stay focused, and you're going to reignite your research if you're bogged down. This is going to help you start finding stuff again and help maybe reignite your research. And then we have some optional fun extras. Work backwards from your 3rd great grandparents first. Go to your 4ths and 5ths and see if you're missing any information. These are extras. If you find something on Familysearch, if you find a record for a parish, for a given, a couple of decades, you might want to consider transcribing it into a spreadsheet, because you never know when you're going to need those other names that are there, and you want to have to go back and find that same frame on that film again. Now you're going to be able to find it because, remember, you sourced it properly, but if you take a little time, you can quickly pop everybody into a spreadsheet, and then you have your own transcript of that particular parish and that particular decade, when you might have marriages, other children marrying into those other names, that your spidey sense says, hey, I saw that name a while back when I was looking at that other record. You could put each completed branch into a public tree like WikiTree and see if you get any hits from the online community. WikiTree, unlike Ancestry and Family and the One World Tree, WikiTree is an HTML tree, which means it gets searched by Google. So if somebody's out there looking for the name of your 3rd great grandfather, they're going to find it on WikiTree. They won't find it anywhere else, because Ancestry's public trees are by membership only. So you've got to be on the Ancestry website to find them. You can build a spreadsheet to track your progress. If you have OCD and you want to keep track of how many people you've added, changed, corrected, or whatever. You can keep a list of your alien abductions. Those are your people who potentially immigrated. Can't find a death, Can't find a marriage for a female, so you don't know if she changed her name, and she's not on any other census after she was so diligently reported on 3 consecutive census records, and then she disappears. Well, she probably immigrated. Or emigrated, sorry. You can use find and replace, I said that before, for global corrections to help speed things up, especially for your place names. You can keep a list of follow-ups, things that you come across that you want to research, and maybe you have to go somewhere to do it. I use Simple Note as a way of tracking this stuff, and the only reason I use Simple Note is because it shares information between Android and actually Macintosh and Windows and Linux, whatever you've got. So if you put it into Simple Note on your computer, it'll appear on your smartphone, it'll appear on your tablet. And that way, when you're at the library and you remember, I wanted to look up a particular record, you've got it there as a to-do list that you can follow with. And by recording it, you don't have to forget about it. You've dealt with it. Or you could create a source, call it research or needs research or something like that, so you can run a report of all the things that you're missing. And the important thing here is I'm saying don't get bogged down when you can't find something. Move on to the next person and carry on, so you keep working your file and put aside the ones that are the problems. So the last word, take your time, there's no deadline. You're going to mark off each individual as you complete them. You're going to tag and source your documents. You're going to be reorganizing your digital documents as you do this. You're going to have fun doing it, and I'm open for questions. Yes, sir.
The 1939 registration, where is that located?
It's on Find My Past, and it's on Ancestry.
So you have to have a...
You have to have a subscription, but you can use Ancestry at the public library.
Right.
So it's that, or a family history center. And some places have, family history centers have Find My Past as well. So you could look at it there. It's almost, actually, Find My Past has weekends for £1, or sometimes they have a month for £1. So if you know you've got a group of people that you're looking for, you could wait until one of those sale weekends comes up and then join up and just use it for that, for that limited time to just look at that one record. Any other questions? I've covered everything that well. Yes?
I'd like to make a comment on your revising where people were born or where they were located. Because in Ontario, at least, you can be born in the same farmhouse as your mother and on the same farm property as your grandfather.
Yep.
But you were born in a different county because in 1881, the township was moved to a new county from the old county.
Same thing happened in the UK.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I lived in Pickering Village, and in 50 years I have had 3 different area codes and 3 different postal names in the same house.
You have to sort of decide how you're going to.
I think you have to be thoroughly complete. In other words, it has to be Mulmer Township,
Yeah.
Simcoe County, or Mulmer Township.
Yeah, usually you do it as to what was correct at the time of the event.
And the lot and the county.
And you're right, a person's born and they've lived in the same house and then they die in the same house and it's a whole different location. Yeah, and you find the same thing in Scotland and England. I tend to work with the historic counties to keep some consistency. I'm not ever going to publish this anywhere, spectacular. So as long as it's good enough for me, that's what I use. But I want to be consistent. Like I said, I was inconsistent with my names, calling them multiple, using different abbreviations and that kind of thing, especially with I'm not a typist, so typing Prince Edward Island is a pain. PEI was a lot easier, and BC is a lot easier.
Bob, you mentioned using symbols, like the copyright symbol and the trademark symbol, or?
Yeah, registered, the R with the circle around
R
it.
symbol?
It's all 0174.
Yeah. When you put that into your field at the beginning of the date?
Yep, no, the beginning of the place. You can't put it in the date
Place.
field or you'll get an error message that says
Okay.
you've got an invalid character. But
Okay.
you can put it in the place name.
But if you put it in the place name, does that ruin any hints you get from other websites?
I don't think so, because the websites generally look at name and dates. I find that they're giving me people who are nowhere near anywhere of my places, just because the name and date matches.
Okay.
So I don't think they look very closely at the place names. And if they did, they should be looking at the end of the place name, the country and county, more than they should be looking at the beginning. Because in a lot of cases, I have an address at the beginning, like 18 Main Street, and then the town, and then the township. You know, you end up with a whole, you know, four pieces to it, or 5 pieces to it.
6 pieces.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Any other questions for Bob? So I know what you're all doing when you go home tonight.
Don't stay up too late.
So Bob, I'd really like to thank you. We really appreciate it. I like the review. It's good. And I've got every one of those problems that you talked about. I know I do. Okay. So thank you very much. I don't want that one. If you could go back to the, you found the trash. Okay, I'd like to call on B to come up. We've had some correspondence.
Most of our correspondence now comes in via email, which is kind of easier for me because I just print it out and I've got it. I'm going to read them out. I'll tell you a date and a name. Remember the name and the date. And if you're interested in it, I've got the information. The first one came in on the 2nd of April, and it came from Faye Troyer. She's writing in hopes of getting some information or guidance in the right direction. I know my family plot is in Goodwood Cemetery, but I'm not sure how to contact the cemetery themselves. She gives us no names, so I have no idea who, but we could tell her where the cemetery was. The second one came in on the 26th of April, and it came from Ryan. And I assume it says it's foliage because he says family foliage. Hello, I'm trying to get transcripts for Smale, S-M-A-L-E, in the old Orono Cemetery. Seems I can't find it online at all, but every other cemetery is. Thanks. I assume we answered that. And on the 28th of April, there's one that was sent via an iPhone from a Donna Miller. Hello from the town of Durham, Ontario, West Grey. I am the great-granddaughter of George Harris, date of birth 9th of March, 1826, died 16th of January, 1903, and Jane Cass, date of birth about 1831, died 12th of October, 1914. They lived in Bowmanville in 1861, and then Cartwright Township in 1871. They owned 15 acres at northwest corner of Lot 18, Concession 4. George was a Mason. Both he and his wife are buried in Devitt Cemetery. I'm wondering if there is a map available to purchase so I can look at this property. Also, any information that might be useful as to the buildings that he may have worked on as a Mason. And the last one is on the 19th of May from Lisa Mackenzie in Edmonton. Hello, I wonder if your branch has recorded this rural cemetery, which contains my earliest matriarch and early pioneer arriving in 1833, Mary Sharp. She does not say which cemetery, but we found that for her, and Debbie answered it for it. So it is everything.
Thank you. I think I saw that one, and it's Mount Carmel Cemetery.
Was it?
Right? Deb, do you remember? Yeah.
The
Okay.
person that needs a map needs to just go on that Renewal site and get all the addresses.
Yeah,
That's what we told her.
Okay.
yeah.
The McGill site and the Toronto
Right
site.
answer? Okay.
And did you sell her the Devitt Cemetery transcriptions? Hopefully.
There's also, years ago, when we first moved to Bowmanville, we went to City Hall and they gave us an awesome map showing all the lots. But we're talking 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, I got one of
Whether
those.
it's still there or not, I don't know.
Well, I actually have a binder from the Clarington Abandoned Cemetery Committee. And I'll say that they have a map for every cemetery and they got it right probably 85% of the time. Because the map that they did for Old Orono Cemetery, they actually colored in the new Orono Cemetery for. And the old Orono Cemetery is now a parquet with no stones because it was so damaged from vandalism. And what stones remained actually got moved out to the cemetery on Concession 4. Lawrence Waddell Cemetery, something like that. That has the 3 cairns. And one of the cairns is what's left of the old Orono Cemetery stones. But the bodies are still in the parquet. Yeah.
I think she was talking about the township maps with the lots and concessions. You used to be able to get one of those at the town hall with it for Durham and Northumberland counties.
Oh, at Clarington Town Hall, or
Yes, but that was a long time ago. They might still
Yeah.
have them.
they might. But the maps that I got as being on the committee were really close up and listed every town lot as well as the farm lots. So, hard to say because they actually disbanded the Abandoned Cemeteries Committee. So, not sure what they're doing anymore. Anyway, we have a newsletter that needs to be put out. We've got a working committee meeting tomorrow afternoon at 2 at the office. If you fancy coming out and joining us and helping us put together articles and snippets and what have you, or if you have an article, you can send it to Durham@ogs.on.ca or durhamchair@ogs.on.ca, and we'll be happy to edit and put it in the newsletter. And we'd appreciate any and all articles that you could send us. And, Dan and I are going to be giving a presentation at the Durham Computer Club, which I probably mangled the name on. And I'm not sure I got the title right. How technology has changed the face of genealogy.
It's probably better than the one I put.
Yeah, Anne's actually putting the PowerPoint slide together, but I'm giving it because Anne has a conflict that night. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be a week Thursday at 7 p.m. at the Faith United Church, and I'm presuming everybody's welcome. Thank you. And we did a survey. Who answered survey? We had 65 respondents. I thought that was pretty darn good. That's like 35% of our membership. And usually you do well if you get over 20% of who you sent it to. So I was very pleased. And one of the questions I asked, you can sort of see it there, it's a little light. What hinders your attendance? So 27% of the people said that the meeting date and time was a problem. 58% said the location was the problem. And part of those 58% are people who live outside the area. And 12% said that the parking was less than ideal, which we knew when we started at this place. So I thank you all for your answers. Wonderful.